So this is my presentation on the cosmic essence of art and existence. And so first, the article I chose is Art is a Different Kind of Cosmic Order by Brian Greene. And just like for a quick summary, basically like throughout the article, he argues the importance of art for personal patterns of moral existence. And he kind of just touches on why he thinks that art has different qualities that are important over science and math. And another important thing that I found about this article was he mentions like that there's no universal definition of art, and each individual person has different interpretations of every art piece. And then Brian Greene, he's a theorist and physicist in communications and science at Columbia University. All right, this is my artist. Her name is Georgia O'Keeffe. She was born in Wisconsin on November 15th in 1887, and then she died on March 6th, 1986 in New Mexico. So a little bit about her life. She was born in Wisconsin, and so there's a lot of inspiration in her pieces of the American Southwest. And then in 1918, she moved to New York, and she had a studio there. And then in 1949, she bought a house in New Mexico, where she lived near a ranch called Ghost Ranch, which is like a big influence in a lot of her works. And like I'll show a piece that has a lot of influence from that ranch. And then so she has a lot of like inspiration from nature in all of her pieces, because like throughout her life she was always surrounded in nature. And she like was a big inspiration of the feminist art movement. She worked in a discipline that was mainly dominated by men or male artists, like critics, curators, who like normally did not have the same kind of appreciation of female art. And she was called the foremother of the feminist art movement. So I'm going to go over like her general patterns of style. I wanted to put some more pieces because I feel like the pieces that I chose like may not like represent her full style. So I just wanted to show some other examples of like what she does. But yeah, she works a lot with color, and she has a lot of like really big details and like a lot of natural objects. So there's a lot of flowers and like skulls or mountains. And she does focus a lot on like feminine like perspective. But yeah, so these are some of the other pieces that kind of represent her. Some of the periods that she was part of, she was mainly considered an American modernist, but she also had a lot of inspiration from Cubism, Fauvism, and Precisionism. And so this is American modernism, that one's Cubism, and this is Fauvism. And I didn't put a picture of Precisionist, but that's a lot of like architecture and like buildings, which is what I guessed is like kind of from when she lived in New York. And then the main media she uses is pastels, charcoals, watercolor, and oil paints. The only pictures that I chose were out of oil paints and pastels, but I just wanted to show that she does like do a lot of different mediums in her work, and that's what I found really interesting about her is like when you look at her art, like there's just so much variety. So this is my first piece. It's called Nude Series 7.
That's 8.
8. Yep, 8. This piece was really interesting to me because like it seems very simple, but there's like a lot of like more meaning to it. Something that was kind of striking about this piece is that like there's a very limited color palette, I'd say. Like she basically only uses blue, and then there's just some spots of red in it. But something that I really liked is she uses different like hues and like shades of blue to like show depth and dimension. And then the background is also just like the plain white color, which is like very contrasting, and it kind of just makes the viewer like really focus on like the subject. And so this is just a very like universal painting of the female body. And like how I interpreted this is like this could be like the harmony and like ordinariness and like emphasis on like the organic form. And I like this because it's like very like this is very like ordinary and like everyone can kind of relate to it. And like this is a lot of the style throughout her works is like the female body, I guess. This one was my favorite. This one is called Music Pink and Blue number 2. And her inspiration from this piece was basically she wanted to describe the way that, so like music can make you feel, and like it can have emotions and words in it, or it can have emotions and feelings in it even without words. And so she believed that art can do the same thing. Like it can display like feelings and emotions even without the actual words. So that was like something really cool about this piece. She wanted to translate music into a visible art. And this one also, like, there's a lot of movement in this piece through the lines, especially in the background. It's just a very like organic flowing piece. And so this to me represents the connection between like obviously like visual and oral arts, but it also is like representing the rhythms and harmonies in nature through like the movement and the colors. Yeah, this is my last piece. It's called Ladder to the Moon. This one is created in 1958. This one was made in New Mexico, and these are the Pedernal Mountains. And this one can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. Some people interpret this as a religious work of the Pueblo culture, and it's trying to like show the relationship between their culture and the cosmic. And something that was interesting is the way that the ladder is angled up towards the sky. It just really is like the symbolism between like the mountains and the moon. And I also really like the use of color, because although this painting is very simple, I think that the color she chose is like a very like striking color. And yeah, some other people might interpret this as a self-portrait. She's actually said herself that this is a self-portrait. And because the moon is in a halfway phase, and it's kind of just showing a transitory like stage of her life. And also something that I found is like, I mean, the sky at sunset is also like transitory in nature because you're going from day to night. Yeah. And then this is a quote from the article just to reconnect it. This dependence on the individual, this reliance on the subjective, that makes art essential for grasping our all too human place in the cosmic order. So basically, how I connect Brian Greene and Georgia O'Keeffe is because they both talk about how art can like display complex emotions and personal expression. But they also like show how art can touch on things that are deeper than just science and math. For example, like the spirituality and dimension in nature. And it's a reflection on that relationship through her art. And another thing that like kind of related between the two of them is that each piece has many different layers of interpretation. Yeah.
That was a strong point to end on. So be confident in that final point.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Interpretation.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, audience, questions, comments?
I think you did really well, and I love how you like ended it with a reconnection. And I think choosing a Georgia O'Keeffe is like a very strong choice. It was very good.
Thanks. Yeah.
I think you had really like intellectual ideas, and it sounded like really well thought out, and like you really knew what you were talking about.
Thanks.
I really like that you included examples of the different types of like art movements that she's a part of, because I feel like sometimes we talk about them and then I have no idea what we're talking about. So
Yes.
I was gonna say something.
Okay. Yeah. I like flowers. Oh yeah. I tried to like kind of connect the slides with like her kind of ideas.
The theme of nature, natural objects, flowers are a huge part of her work. And the connection between the shapes of flowers and different parts of the human body, the female body, were a really important part of her work. So I'm wondering, why did you choose O'Keeffe? Can you tell us again?
I mean, I chose her because she was like a big part of the feminist movement. But I just like really like her use of color, and like honestly, it was just like one of the easiest ones for me to like understand, I guess, her work, because like a lot of times it's super abstract. I can't really understand it, but like her work was like pretty easy for me to like understand and like get the feeling of.
Awesome. Have you ever been to New Mexico?
I've not been to New Mexico.
Has anyone ever been to New Mexico? No? If you ever go to New Mexico and you're in Santa Fe, go to the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum. It's very, very powerful. And you'll see how the landscape influenced her artwork.
Yeah.
She was very, very much in touch with the landscape. So that was a sacred place for her. Came up over and over again in her artwork. And then, of course, the Taos Pueblo, which is about 55 minutes north, was also an influential place.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned that as well.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's represented here.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Okay, thank you very much.